Ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the spotlight on the driving home segment of the week. This week we're still in the fallout of the Spurs turmoil. There's reported leaks in the dressing room. When is there not? Leaks are leaks. I think leaks come out of every club. We seem to make a massive deal of them. Leak lineups, leak this, leak that. It always comes out. Some channels are blaming players. Personally, I think a lot of these leaks probably don't come from players. They'll come from people and staff in and around the playing squad and who know what's happening. I very much doubt Marcus Rashford sat there telling his mate to tell frigging Samuel Luckhurst to the Manchester Evening News what the starting 11 is a day before the starting 11. It's just not happening. It'll be one of the staff telling the mates or getting 50 quid on the side to leak it to a paper earlier or something. I mean, the worrying thing is I think there's one thing I think Andy Mitten has come out with that I've heard, that after the FA Cup final, he said apparently something along the lines of that he spoke to 3 or 4 players straight after that game and asked them about the manager, and they basically were not concrete in or out. They basically said they've got worries with the tactical setup and the formation and how we're getting overrun constantly at Old Trafford. So, I mean, from those quotes, who do you think it is? We know for a fact Casemiro's already come out and criticised Ten Hag's tactics and left him open, so it could be him. To me, that kind of thing, it seems to me like they obviously care about the record at Old Trafford and not getting beaten there. So you would assume it's probably players that are entwined within the club. It might not even be players that were playing. It could be players that were on the bench, sub, whatever. We don't know. But the facts are, this is going back to the FA Cup coming from a quoted journalist around Man United, that he's a big Man United journalist and fan, Andy Mitten. So you've got to take into account what he's saying is true. He ain't making that up. So obviously some of the playing staff at least, or the players, had concerns over Ten Hag's formation at the back end of last year. He's continued into this year. And what I want to get onto is this Ten Hag versus the players debate, and then I'll get onto a bit about who I would take as manager and this, that and the other later. But look, I'm firmly in the camp of this is Eric Ten Hag's problem. People keep telling me and keep saying it's the players, it's the same players. Who are the same players? Delo, who Ten Hag hasn't had involvement in and bought, but we have recently given him a new contract, or a year or two ago given him a new contract. It could have been under Ten Hag, or it could have been just before. But Ten Hag, yes, Delo has been poor in the last couple of games, playing out of position. But last season and this season he plays every game, and he was probably one of our best players last year. So you can't blame Delo as a player who's down in tools. Rashford and Bruno are players that were under Ollie, under Ranić, and were part of a squad that were blamed for down in tools. And people are again saying these are 2 players that are down in tools. Do I think they're down in tools? Personally, probably yes, but I'm not going to isolate these 2 players. You've all heard 1,000 times my opinions on both these players. I think the fan base hold them in too high regard. They're nowhere near as good as we think they are, and for some reason the club, and not just the fan base, carry on building teams and squads around those 2 players when they have failed now for 6, 7, 8 years in a row. But that's my point on them 2. This is a point on Ten Hag and these being his players or not. Under Ten Hag's reign, he has consistently played Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford with almost without fail. The odd drop here and there. He's given them both bumper new contracts since he's been in the club. Whether it's him or the club, it don't matter. It's under his reign. Why, if he doesn't think those 2 are good enough, is he not dropping them? why, if he thinks they're not good enough, is he not stubborn enough with the club and Ineos to say you shouldn't be giving these two new contracts? Clearly Ten Hag rates them two. So I class them now as part of his squad, his players, because he has Mount, he's had Sancho, he's got Anthony, he's been having Garnacho on the bench. I mean, the list goes on. He's had Eriksen on the bench for ages. Casemiro's now on the bench. You know what I mean? Like, there's Ahmad that's been in and out the team over the last couple of years. Obviously cemented his place this year on and off, but there's plenty of players out there from this season and past seasons where Erik ten Hag did not need to play Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford, and he's continually done it. So whether they're the leakers, whether they're the problem in the dressing room, Ten Hag has stood by those two and continues to build this team around them. Two players that have been here for 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever how many of years, that have consistently failed. Then the rest of the players in that squad are his. And I include the youth in that because he's the one bringing that youth through. Maino is brought through. Garnacho, he's given the chance. So I can't remember if he was brought through at the end of Ollie's reign, but under Ten Hag's let him run free. And everyone else in that team is bought. And I understand that just because a manager has bought a player doesn't mean that they will continue to play for him, or maybe they get in there and they realise, oh my God, I can't play under this manager. I mean, it's horrendous, you know. Or maybe the other players get in their ear and as a squad, they're not behind him. But the facts are, £616 million later, euros later, whatever it is, he's brought in, loaned in and brought through over 20 players, and 2.5 years into his tenure, there's no obvious coaching, there's no progression, there's no patterns, there's no leadership, there's no structure. Somebody please tell me. And some people keep saying about progression. Yeah, we're progressing this season. We're not conceding as many shots. We're creating more chances. The goal different. The GA's better. Whatever's better. Forget the stats. Look at the results. Stop pretending you're playing Football Manager, or you're on the Premier League website scrutinising stats instead of watching the actual games with your eyes. I don't know if anybody's realised this, but we've won 2 games out of 6 in the Premier League. It don't matter if we're conceding 10 shots instead of 30. We're still not winning games. And that is why I still believe that Ten Hag is the core root of the problem. Whether you want to say the players have down tools, and maybe they have, and just because he's bought them don't mean they can't down tools on him. But the facts are, 3 years in, there's no progression, and it is totally and utterly his squad. I am not having this argument that it's not his squad. The same players are here. It's complete and utter total cop-out for Erik ten Hag, that. I'm absolutely not having it. So, on the Ten Hag thing, do I think he should get these next two games to save his job? No. In fact, I would sack him and give Ruud the next 2 games and go find another manager in the international break. Do I want Ruud to be the next permanent manager? No. I don't want another legend of the club going in there and failing again. You never know, Ruud could do well. But it's something I don't want to find out right now. Let him be interim, a bit like Carrick was. 2, 3, 4, 5 games till we get someone in through the door. Let him continue as coach. And maybe if that coach fails in a couple of years and Ruud's still around, you try him then. But now, absolutely not. Who's out there realistically that you could get at a click of a finger? Probably Tuchel, Potter, Southgate. Southgate is a failure from the start because the fan base will never back him. I think even if Southgate came in and we won the next 10 games in a row, people would still not back Southgate to be a Man United manager. So, and I am totally and utterly against Southgate. I think he's a woeful manager. He was terrible for England, but I'm trying to take a neutral view on this. That even if he come in and did ridiculously well, the fan base would not accept him as a Man United manager. So he's absolutely a no. Graham Potter, I think he's almost got the same thing that Southgate has got, that the fan base don't think he's good enough to be a Man United manager. We'd go down the same route we've been with Ollie and Ten Hag, where he just won't be strong enough or have enough about him to manage Man United. Potter, the only difference with Potter to Southgate to me is if he come in and won 10 games in a row and changed the style of play and we look good under Potter, I think he could win the fan base over, where I don't think Southgate ever would. Then you've got Tuchel, who completely divides the fan base. I think probably a lot of old school Man United fans like the thought of Tuchel. Someone who's clearly a bit of an authoritarian, who's not scared to drop players. And probably with the hope of Tuchel coming in, you would hope that players like Rashford and Bruno would not be on that pitch, because he's got a track record of it at Bayern. He will drop people. He don't care who they are. They'll be out the team if you don't fancy him. And I sort of subscribe to that philosophy at the minute. We went from Jose, who was a bit like that, and we all moan because he fell out with the fans. Fell out with the players, sorry. The fans thought he was toxic. But in hindsight, Jose Mourinho wanted the players out that were still hanging around the club on the injury bench till last summer, and Luke Shaw's still here. So in hindsight, Jose Mourinho wasn't backed. He got us to second, and he was telling the truth about the club, that at the time a lot of the fan base, probably me included, didn't believe it was as bad as he was saying it was. But obviously now we know it is that bad. So do we go back to a Mourinho type that's authoritative, which I think is what Tuchel would be? The problem is, will Tuchel work under Ineos, where they clearly want a coach and want to be very involved in what goes on? But I think Tuchel wants to do his own thing and would want his own players and his own philosophy. I mean, what do you think? Where do we go if Ten Hag's sacked in the international break? Who's coming in? Ruud, Tuchel, Potter, Southgate, or someone else? Would we go out and pull someone out of another club or a country? Another couple of options are, a lot of people talk about Inzaghi. I don't actually know who he's managing at the minute, but people seem to highly rate him. I think Inzaghi is another massive risk personally. Probably coming from a lower team or a team in Serie A into this absolute mess at Man United. I think he's unless he come in and changed our style of play overnight like other managers do in the Premier League, I think he'd be doomed to fail. But I might be wrong. I don't know enough about Inzaghi. Somebody in the comments let me know about Inzaghi and what he's doing and why people think he should get the job. Then you've got McKenna at Ipswich, who Man United could clearly get out of Ipswich, I think, McKenna. Obviously, he was at the club. We got rid of him. He's gone to Ipswich and done a very good job. Is he ready to take over this mess at Man United? That's a 50-50 punt for me. McKenna could come in the club and revolutionise it. He could work under Ineos, change the philosophy of the club, the way we play and everything, and we could all be sat here in a year's time thinking what a great move getting McKenna out of Ipswich was. Or it could be a catastrophe and we think, oh my God, why did we do that? It's too early for McKenna. It's probably one management job and one crisis too big for McKenna right now, I think. If we were steady and stabilised, McKenna might be the man, but right now I don't think so. But I wouldn't be against McKenna, but I would be sceptical of how we would do, especially with what's happened in the past. And would he have the bottle to be outing the players that everyone calls the non-Ten Hag players who've been the troublesome players for so long? I don't know. Who else is out there that we could get? I mean, we're not getting Klopp, so I don't even know why any Man United fan says that. There's some people I've seen comments of other channels saying Klopp. I mean, do you even understand the reasons why Klopp wouldn't come to Man United at all? I mean, he was Liverpool's best manager since the bloody 70s. There's no chance he becomes Man United manager. We could probably pay him £5 billion and he still wouldn't become Man United manager. If you don't understand that, you need to go away and look at a bit of the history of the club. It will never happen. People say Amorim. He was a name thrown around before the start of the season. Again, who's he, Lisbon manager or Benfica manager? Another risk. But you would hope he would come in and change the style of play straight away and get us going. Because I do think we have got some good players. We've got a structure there that you could maybe do something with. But there's a hell of a lot of work to do with that squad in its current state. I mean, the problem I have with that squad at the minute is, say we got a manager in that's a front-footed manager, say Postecoglou come in or Emery. This is just fantasy land right now. If a Pep Guardiola come in, I don't know what, if Ancelotti come in, we haven't got the players. The players we've bought are not the profile. We're not good enough on the ball. And the problem we have, I think, our players look slow. I don't know what it is, but why do all of our players look so slow? Obviously Rashford's fairly quick. Højlund's quick. Who else is quick? You know, we don't have a quick midfielder. Bruno's not quick. Eriksen's not quick. Casemiro's not quick. I don't think Agate looks particularly quick. De Ligt and Martinez aren't quick. All this bull crap about other channels saying De Ligt and Martinez will play a high line. They won't. For one, to play a high line, you've got to keep the ball. And for two, to play a high line, you've got to be semi-quick. And I'm afraid they're not quick. They're just average paced. Look at Van der Ven and people like Diaz and that Van Dijk. They're quick. I'm afraid Martinez and De Ligt are not quick. On Martinez for a minute, I think he's been woeful. I think he has been dreadful this season. Yes, he's come back from a long-term injury. I've said it in a few channels' comments and talked about Martinez, and people think I'm talking absolute crap, but again, he's diving in on the halfway line for Spurs. Looks like he wants to get sent off. He's passing that we bought him for, and everyone's raving on about how great he is at playing out from the back. I don't see it. Every time he's got the ball, he gives it away. Like, and people say, oh, well, there's no one there for him to pass to, or if there's nobody there to pass to, pass it sideways. You know, go back to Onana. Stop giving the ball away all the time. He's a booking waiting to happen. He's a diving on the halfway line and getting spun and done in behind every single game at least once. Every time he's on the ball, which we want him to be on the ball, apparently he gives the ball away. He's one of those players for me at the minute who is on a knife edge, who he fits into the fan favourites brigade for me, that people like his attitude because he's aggressive and he clearly wants the club to do well, a bit like Bruno, but people allow their favouritism because they like the club and work hard and are aggressive, to allow their opinion to be swayed on performance, when the reality of it is the performance of Martinez has been shockingly bad. Awful this season. Terrible. People don't want to hear it because they like the guy. Facts are, he's been crap. But that is all I've really got to say on the management talk. I've been going on 20 minutes. I just wanted to quickly go off a point that I heard from another fan channel, and actually one of my mates brought this up the other day, and he didn't even see this, and he's not a Man United fan. He said, is Erik ten Hag one of the worst managers? The fan channel said, is he the worst manager Man United have had since Fergie? And my mate in a separate conversation said, is he the worst or one of the worst Premier League managers of all time? And I know we're late in the video, but let me know in the comments what you think, because to me, and I'll go through the Man United one, the Premier League one's a very difficult question to answer because there's been a lot of managers that have been bad. But the Man United one's, Moyes was brought in to do a ridiculously difficult job after Alex Ferguson come in with clearly a downturn in the squad. Is that to defence of him? No, because he ripped the backroom staff up and all that lot and failed. He was a terrible manager for Man United, but he also probably had one of the toughest jobs, taking over from Fergie and trying to rebuild that squad. Very difficult, but failure. Van Gaal, boring football, sacked for less than Erik ten Hag has done. At least he had a style of football that he stuck to and semi-worked. He came 5th and won the FA Cup and was sacked. Ten Hag's won the FA Cup and come 8th and didn't get sacked. So Van Gaal's better than Ten Hag. Then where do we go? Jose. I've already mentioned Jose earlier in the video. To me, he's the best manager we've had since Fergie. And with hindsight, you can see that. The problem is, at the time, we didn't know the club was in this much of a state, and we all blamed Mourinho and got on Mourinho's back for being toxic and talking about the club and the owners and whatnot, when the reality is he's just talking the truth. And then, where did we go from there? Ollie, was it? After Jose? Ollie, obviously, everyone got on the bandwagon with Ollie. He had a great start. He was unbeaten at home or away, was it, for frigging ages? One of the best away records in Premier League history. Got the fan base behind him, played some great football to start with, but the end of Ollie's tenure was as bad as it is now. But overall of Ollie's tenure, in the time Ollie was in charge of Man United, was it as bad as Ten Hag's? I don't think it actually was. And if you go back on this channel, in which none of you will, and watch my videos about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you'll know how critical I was of him. So to say that Ten Hag's tenure over his full time here is worse than Solskjaer's is a very, very, very bad thing for Ten Hag. Because I thought Ole was a disgrace as a manager towards the end, especially. Absolutely disastrous. But in his time as Man United manager, we had more ups with Solskjaer than we've had with Ten Hag. Rangnick was barely manager, so it's hard to say. The players just didn't get on board with him at all, did they? So I think he was similar to Ten Hag, Rangnick. The players just didn't believe in his philosophy. The difference was Rangnick come out and said, a bit like Mourinho did, that you'll never go anywhere with these players, open heart surgery and all that lot. The problem is, Ten Hag's been given the money and the players to do the open heart surgery, and we're still where we are. So you tell me in the comments, after that little summary of management, the order you rate Man United managers, because personally, I mean, Moyes and Ten Hag are at the bottom. Then Ollie, then probably Rangnick, then Van Gaal, and then Mourinho. And people probably won't like Van Gaal being at second because it was boring and that underneath him, but at least you can see what he was doing. But that is where I'm going to leave it. Tell me the order of Man United managers below. Like, favourite and subscribe. Do me a favour. Drive home video. I might be back on Thursday because I'm driving back into the office on Thursday, the morning before the Porto game. So I'll talk about that game and the Villa game on that video if I do one. And peace, like, sub, and see you later.